In this lesson, we are going to discuss sex-linked characteristics and tackle past KCSE questions on color blindness, hemophilia, and hairy ears. So stay tuned. Okay, so first things first, what are sex-linked characteristics? Now, these are characteristics that are determined by genes that are located on the sex chromosomes, which in humans are the X and Y chromosomes. So these chromosomes determine an individual's sex, whether male or female. In the case of females, we have two X chromosomes, and in the case of males, of course, they have one X chromosome and one Y chromosome. So the genes present in the sex chromosomes are inherited together with those that determine sex and are therefore said to be sex-linked. Now, one thing I'd like to mention is that you're going to have fewer chromosomes or fewer genes present in the Y chromosome as opposed to the X chromosome. And one of the reasons for this is because the X chromosome is quite larger compared to the Y chromosome, and therefore it has more space and can accommodate more genes. Okay, let's start with our first KCSE question. Now, this is from 2015 and it's on color blindness. So the question goes as such. Color blindness is a sex-linked trait controlled by a recessive gene B. If a mother is a carrier and the father is normal, what is the chance that their son will be colorblind? Show your working. So color blindness is a disorder that affects an individual's ability to perceive certain colors accurately. Now, the most common type of color blindness is whereby individuals have difficulty in distinguishing between red and green colors, but there are other forms as well. Now, when it comes to color blindness, this is more common in men than in females. And the reason comes down to the gene that is responsible for this disorder. So the recessive gene that is responsible for color blindness is present on the X chromosome. Women have two X chromosomes. So if one has the affected gene, the other will compensate for it. Now, one thing I'd like you to note is this. The normal gene is dominant over the colorblind gene. So if you have a woman who is heterozygous, that has one normal gene and one that is colorblind, then that woman is going to be phenotypically normal because the normal gene is dominant. But she is going to be a carrier and can pass on the gene to her offspring. Males, on the other hand, have only one X chromosome. They don't have this backup. So that makes them more likely to be affected if the chromosome they inherit has a colorblind gene. So going back to our question, the father is normal. So we are going to write his genotype as X and Y. Now, when talking or when answering questions regarding sex-linked characteristics, you have to include the sex chromosomes because remember, these are controlled by genes that are sex-linked, that are present on the sex chromosomes. So in the case of males, XY has to be present. In the case of females, XX. And then we are simply going to add the letters that we use to represent the different disorders. Now, in the case of color blindness, we use the letter N. So a capital N for the normal gene and a small n for the colorblind gene. So that is going to be the genotype of the father. Now, in the case of the mother, we are being told that she's a carrier. So that means she's going to be heterozygous. She will have one normal gene and one colorblind gene. And that is going to be illustrated as such. Now, for those of you who are wondering why we don't have any gene on the Y chromosome, the reason for this is this particular gene is only ever present on the X chromosome. So we are going to have the following gametes, and yes, you're taking your sex chromosomes with you till the end. And on crossing, we have the following possible genotypes for the F1 generation or for the offspring. So these are going to be the females because they have two X chromosomes, and these are the males because they have a Y chromosome. So the two females will both be phenotypically normal. That is, they will not be colorblind, but one will be a carrier. Now, in the case of males, remember males unfortunately only have the option of either being normal or colorblind. One is colorblind and one is normal. At this point, we are almost done. The only thing remaining is for us to answer the actual question, which is, what is the chance that their son will be colorblind? Now, if we look at the four possible genotypes, 2 is for males. So out of the 2, 1 is colorblind. So that makes the chance a half or 50%. Now guys, some of you might be wondering what these two symbols mean. Okay, you might know what they mean, but on a deeper level. So these are the gender symbols that represent males and females. And fun fact is this, according to some historians, the first person to use this was Carolus Linnaeus. Do you remember this guy? Binomial nomenclature? Yes, that guy. Now, one of my students previously asked me, is there a deeper meaning to these symbols, or are they just, just drawn? And I got to researching and I found out that the masculine symbol, this symbol, is apparently based on the spear and shield. Okay, that's awesome. Now, guess what the female represents? Apparently, it represents a mirror in the hand. Can you imagine that? Males get this super cool, analogy of physical strength, while females get one for vanity. Anyways, let's continue to our second question on hairy ears in men. What? And yes, I'm getting back at you. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, subscribe if you haven't done so already and hit that like button. Now, hairy ears is a phenomenon that is present in men. Now, the reason for this is because it's determined by a dominant gene that is only found on the Y chromosome. Now, females don't inherit the Y chromosome from their fathers, and so they cannot carry the genes. So in this question, the father is hairy-eared and the mother is normal, no hair in the ears. Now, the genotype is going to be XYH for the father, and for the mother it's going to be XX. And yes, we are going to include the sex chromosomes because this is a sex-linked gene. Now, in case you're wondering why we don't have any gene illustrated on the X chromosome, then just a reminder, this gene is only present on the Y chromosome. Now, there is our gametes, and finally we have the 4 possible genotypes for the offspring. So the question is asking us, work out across. Okay, we've already done that. Now, part B, Roman 1, what is the probability of the girls having hairy ears? The probability is 0% or none. And the reason for this is because this gene is only present on the Y chromosome, which the girls do not have, and so they cannot carry the gene. Now, Roman 2, give a reason. Okay, we've already done that. And then part C, name 2 disorders in humans that are determined by sex-linked genes. So apart from hairy ears, we have color blindness, hemophilia, premature baldness. All of these are correct. On to our last question on hemophilia. So I tried to find a challenging KCSE question on this topic, but unfortunately I wasn't successful. So this is a question that is from one of the mock papers. Hemophilia is a genetic disease which is transmitted through a recessive gene linked to the X chromosome. The normal gene may be represented by XH, and the gene for hemophilia may be represented by X_h. Now, before we delve further into the question, I would like to mention this. Hemophilia is a very serious disease in which the blood takes an abnormally long time to clot. So it can lead to uncontrolled bleeding, even from slight cuts or injuries. So like color blindness, hemophilia is transmitted through a recessive gene that is present on the X chromosome. And as a result, it tends to be more common in men than female. So the mechanism of inheritance is quite similar to that of color blindness. Going back to our question, part A, with respect to the gene for hemophilia, give all the possible genotypes in a human population and state their phenotypes. Now for this, we are going to do so, and we are also going to take into account the sexes, male and female, because this is a gene that is sex-linked. So in the case of males, we are going to have the following 2 genotypes. Now, either a male will be completely normal or he will be hemophiliac. And the reason for this is because males only have 1 X chromosome. Now, on the other hand, females have 2 X chromosomes, and therefore there are 3 possibilities. Either the female will be completely normal, or she's going to be hemophiliac, or lastly, she's going to be a carrier, whereby she's going to have 1 normal gene and 1 hemophiliac gene. Part B, a woman who is a carrier for the hemophiliac gene married a normal man. Work out the expected genotypic ratio for their offspring. So we are going to start with the genotypes, okay? So first of all, the phenotypes. You are having, number 1, a normal man. The woman, of course, is also going to be phenotypically normal but a carrier. And those are their genotypes. So on crossing, we are going to have the following 4 possible genotypes for their offspring. Now I want you to look at the genotypes. By the way, if you take a closer look at the genotype, you'll notice one thing. No genotype is similar to another. They are all different from one another. So our genotypic ratio is going to state it as such. Now, in case you're wondering, but I can see some, you don't see any similarities. If we are going to go closer and look at the women, so this is a normal woman, completely normal. This is a carrier woman. Are they similar to one another, or are they different? They are different to one another. If we look at the males again, you have a normal male and a hemophiliac male, completely different from one another. So you're going to state the genotypic ratio as such. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this wonderful lesson. By the way, be sure to check out the shorts because I will be uploading short test questions on them. See you next time.